After 3 years of laying low following a series of scandals, and let's not even get into the Rust incident just yet, Alec Baldwin is back, not with a bang, but with the kind of slow, awkward stumble that makes you wonder if he's lost the script, or maybe the plot entirely. This time, he's returned to the political arena with all the subtlety of a wrecking ball, complete with his famously polarizing Trump impersonation on Saturday Night Live and some rather bold comments about Americans and their supposed ignorance. Spoiler alert, the drama doesn't stop there. But let's start with Baldwin's apparent thesis, shared during a press conference at the Torino Film Festival. Americans, he says, are wildly uninformed. Topics like climate change, Ukraine, and other global issues are barely scratching the surface of public consciousness, and according to Baldwin, the film industry is here to save us from ourselves, because clearly, nothing screams credible news source like a Hollywood scriptwriter with a Netflix deal.
Learn from the news. Television news in the United States is a business. They have to make money. And again, not to go into great detail about that, but there's a hole, there's a vacuum. There is a gap, if you will, in information for Americans. Americans are very uninformed about reality, what's really going on. With climate change, Ukraine, Israel, you name it, all the biggest topics in the world, Americans have an appetite for a little bit of information. That vacuum is filled by the film industry, not just the independent film industry, not just the documentary film industry, which are very important.
But before we continue with this whole drama, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the latest news surrounding Hollywood. To be fair, there's some truth to the idea that films can educate while entertaining. Documentaries like The Social Dilemma or narrative films like Aaron Brockovich have tackled important social issues effectively. But Baldwin's argument wasn't just about making meaningful films. It was about filling an information vacuum that traditional news media apparently isn't addressing. Here's the rub. When films start doubling as news, that's not education. It's propaganda. People want to escape into entertainment, not be bludgeoned with political messaging during their Friday night movie marathon. And yet, Baldwin seems convinced that the Hollywood machine is perfectly suited to bridge this so-called gap in knowledge. Never mind that most people go to the movies to unwind, not to get lectured on global crises. Baldwin's take feels less like a thoughtful critique and more like the kind of out-of-touch pontification that turns audiences off entirely. As if his comments weren't already stirring the pot, Baldwin decided to resurrect his Trump impersonation on SNL in what can only be described as a desperate attempt to reclaim relevance. For years, his Trump act was a centerpiece of the show's political satire, earning mixed reviews. Some loved it, others loathed it, but this time around, the consensus was clear. His performance fell flat. Social media, always eager to pounce, had a field day. One user on X quipped, "Alec Baldwin thinks Trump voters are dumb, but at least they don't show up on SNL with their flies down." Another chimed in saying, "When Alec Baldwin is your best option for a Trump impersonation, it's time to cancel the show." Ouch. The problem wasn't just that the impression felt dated, it was that it lacked any real bite. Satire works best when it's sharp, insightful, and nuanced. Baldwin's latest attempt, however, felt more like a cartoonish caricature, devoid of substance. It wasn't clever, it was lazy, relying on tired jokes that did little more than preach to an already convinced audience. If anything, it highlighted just how out of touch SNL has become. Baldwin's SNL performance wasn't just a flailing attempt at humor, it was also a thinly veiled jab at Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's currently making waves as a controversial pick for Health and Human Services Secretary.
Hey, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to tell you again, I'm so honored to be the head of the Health and Human Services Department. Americans need someone to teach them how to be healthy, someone like me, a 70-year-old man with movie star looks and a worm in his brain.
Kennedy's appointment has sparked fierce debate, with supporters praising his willingness to take on Big Pharma and critics questioning his views on vaccines. Love him or hate him, RFK Jr. has a knack for shaking things up, and that's precisely what makes him a target. Even some Democrats have voiced cautious support for Kennedy, including Colorado Governor Jared Polis. In a recent post on X, Polis expressed optimism about RFK Jr.'s ability to tackle corporate greed in the pharmaceutical and agricultural industries, saying he's excited to partner with him on improving public health. But instead of applause, Polis faced backlash, particularly from CNN, which grilled him for daring to step outside the party line. Heaven forbid a Democrat find common ground with a controversial figure. Kennedy's vision for HHS is ambitious, to say the least. His priorities include rooting out corruption in regulatory agencies, reinstating evidence-based science as the gold standard and addressing America's chronic disease epidemic. Say what you will about his politics, but his track record speaks volumes. From taking on Monsanto over the dangers of glyphosate to exposing corporate agriculture's role in public health crises, Kennedy has proven he's not afraid to go toe-to-toe with powerful interests. And of course, not everyone is thrilled with his appointment. Critics argue that Kennedy's stance on vaccines undermines his credibility, even though he's clarified that he doesn't intend to limit their availability. The debate is complex, but one thing is clear. RFK Jr. is a disruptor, and his presence in the administration could signal a much-needed shakeup in a system long dominated by corporate influence.
You have been a crusader on questioning vaccines. Are there specific vaccines that you would seek to take off the market?
Oh, I'm not going to take away anybody's vaccines. I've never been anti-vaccine.
You will not take any vaccine that is currently on the market.
I'm not. If vaccines are working for somebody, I'm not going to take them away. People ought to have a choice, and that choice ought to be informed by the best information. So I'm going to make sure the scientific safety studies and efficacies are out there, and people can make individual assessments about whether that product is going to be good for them.
Would that include COVID vaccines that are currently on the market?
I want the best science for every vaccine.
This brings us back to Baldwin's original point about the film industry stepping in to educate Americans. While it's true that Hollywood has the power to shine a light on important issues, it's a slippery slope when entertainment starts masquerading as news. Baldwin's comments, coupled with his SNL antics, underscore a larger problem: the growing divide between Hollywood elites and everyday audiences. Take a film like Sound of Freedom, for example. It tackled the difficult issue of child trafficking with sensitivity and impact, resonating with audiences across the political spectrum. That's the kind of socially aware filmmaking that works because it puts the issue first, not the politics. Compare that to Baldwin's preachy approach, and it's no wonder people are tuning out. The beauty of entertainment lies in its ability to bring people together, regardless of their beliefs or backgrounds, but when creators inject overt political messaging into their work, they risk alienating their audience. Baldwin's recent missteps are a prime example of this. Rather than fostering meaningful dialogue, he's doubling down on divisive rhetoric, further widening the cultural divide. Baldwin's antics may be entertaining for all the wrong reasons, but they also highlight a broader cultural shift. The public's appetite for political preaching, whether it's from Hollywood, the media, or even late-night comedy, is waning. People are tired of being told what to think, and they're looking for alternatives that prioritize substance over spin. RFK Jr.'s rise to prominence is a reflection of this shift. His focus on tackling corporate greed and improving public health resonates with Americans who are fed up with the status quo. Whether or not he succeeds remains to be seen, but his willingness to challenge powerful interests has earned him a dedicated following. As for Baldwin, his return to the spotlight feels more like a cautionary tale than a comeback. His attempts to blend entertainment and activism have fallen flat, alienating audiences and drawing criticism from all sides. If anything, his recent escapades serve as a reminder that sometimes less is more, especially when it comes to politics and entertainment. So where does all this leave us? For starters, it's clear that Baldwin's era of influence is fading fast. His latest Trump impersonation was a dud. His comments about Americans' intelligence were tone-deaf, and his faith in Hollywood as a source of enlightenment is at best misplaced. Meanwhile, RFK Jr. is emerging as a polarizing but undeniably impactful figure, challenging the norms of both the political and corporate worlds. Whether you agree with him or not, his focus on breaking the cycle of greed in public health policy is a conversation worth having. At the end of the day, the real question isn't whether Baldwin has lost it. It's whether he ever really had it to begin with. If you guys liked today's video, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.